Daniel Carter had worked at Harrington Industries for 11 years. He wasn't an executive. He didn't have a corner office. Most employees barely noticed him. As the head of cybersecurity, Daniel preferred it that way. His job wasn't to stand in front of cameras or attend glamorous meetings. His job was to quietly stop problems before anyone else knew they existed. And for 11 years, he had done exactly that. After losing his wife 5 years earlier, Daniel dedicated his life to raising his 9-year-old daughter, Lily. Every morning began the same way. Breakfast. School drop-off. Work. Dinner. Homework. Bedtime stories. Simple routines had become the foundation of their lives. At the office, Daniel earned a reputation for honesty. If a system had weaknesses, he reported them. If someone made mistakes, he fixed them without seeking credit. His team trusted him completely. But not everyone appreciated his habit of asking difficult questions. Especially not certain executives. Harrington Industries was led by Victoria Harrington, a brilliant CEO who had inherited the company from her father. The business employed thousands of people and had remained in the family for nearly 70 years. Victoria worked tirelessly to honor that legacy. But over the past year, something felt wrong. Profits looked strong on paper. Yet important projects repeatedly failed. Money disappeared into unexplained expenses. Several contracts produced losses no one could fully explain. The board blamed market conditions. Victoria wasn't convinced. One evening, Daniel stayed late reviewing unusual activity inside the company's financial systems. He wasn't investigating money. He was investigating security access. And what he discovered troubled him. Someone with high-level authorization had repeatedly accessed confidential files before major business decisions. Internal documents. Acquisition plans. Pricing information. Private negotiations. Information that should have remained secret. Daniel quietly continued his investigation for weeks. He followed digital records. Reviewed access logs. Compared timelines. Eventually, a pattern emerged. The suspicious activity always connected back to accounts authorized by members of the Harrington family. Daniel checked the data again. And again. The conclusion remained the same. Someone close to Victoria was leaking information. Daniel knew he couldn't make accusations without proof. So he prepared a confidential report and requested a private meeting. Victoria listened carefully as Daniel explained his concerns. When he finished, she looked shocked. "You're saying someone inside my family may be involved?" "I'm saying the evidence points in that direction." Victoria stared out the window. "My uncle sits on the board. My cousin oversees acquisitions. My brother handles international operations." Daniel nodded quietly. "I know." She folded her arms. "This is a serious accusation. That's why I'm asking you to investigate further before making any decisions." Victoria thanked him and promised to review everything personally. But before she could act, someone else learned about Daniel's report. 2 days later, Victoria entered an emergency board meeting. Several family members sat around the table. One director immediately spoke. "We have a problem." "What kind of problem?" "A cybersecurity manager is making dangerous accusations against the family." Another added. "Employees are becoming uncomfortable. This could damage the company's reputation." Victoria frowned. "No accusations have been made publicly." Her uncle leaned forward. "Then stop the problem before it grows." Over the next hour, pressure mounted. Questions turned into demands. Suggestions turned into arguments. Victoria felt trapped between loyalty to her family and uncertainty about the evidence. Finally, exhausted and overwhelmed, she made a decision she would soon regret. Daniel Carter was terminated. That evening, Victoria personally met Daniel in his office. He quietly packed photographs, books, and the small drawing Lily had made for his desk. Victoria looked uncomfortable. "I'm sorry. The board believes this is necessary." Daniel nodded calmly. "I understand." He picked up the framed picture of Lily and walked toward the door. Then he paused. Without anger. Without bitterness. He looked at Victoria and quietly said, "Be careful. Sometimes the people closest to us are the ones we question the least." He turned to leave. Then added one final sentence that stayed in Victoria's mind long after he was gone. "Don't trust your own family." For 11 years, Daniel Carter had quietly protected Harrington Industries from threats most employees never knew existed. He wasn't the face of the company. He never appeared in annual reports. His name wasn't printed in press releases. But behind the scenes, Daniel was the person who made sure the company's most valuable information stayed secure. As director of cybersecurity, he believed that the best security systems weren't the ones people noticed. They were the ones that prevented disasters before they happened. After losing his wife 6 years earlier, Daniel devoted himself to raising his 9-year-old daughter, Lily. His life followed a simple rhythm. Wake up before sunrise. Make pancakes every Saturday. Walk Lily to school. Work. Come home in time for dinner. Read one chapter of a storybook before bed. His co-workers often wondered why he never accepted promotions into executive management. Daniel always smiled. "My daughter only gets one childhood. I don't want to miss it." Across the building, CEO Victoria Harrington carried a different burden. She had inherited Harrington Industries from her father after his sudden passing. It wasn't just a company. It was her family's legacy. Thousands of employees depended on it. Every major decision carried enormous pressure. Although Victoria was respected throughout the business world, one problem refused to disappear. Important business deals kept failing. Competitors somehow knew confidential pricing before negotiations. New product designs appeared elsewhere months before launch. Major investors unexpectedly withdrew at the last minute. Each incident seemed unrelated. Yet together, they painted a disturbing picture. Someone was leaking confidential information. The board blamed hackers. Outside consultants blamed outdated systems. Daniel wasn't convinced. Late one evening, after most employees had gone home, he stayed behind reviewing security logs. Instead of searching for outside attacks, he focused on something different. Internal access. Who viewed confidential files? When? And from where? Hour after hour, he compared records. Gradually, a pattern emerged. Every major information leak had one thing in common. The confidential files had been accessed shortly before the leaks by accounts connected to executive offices. At first, Daniel assumed someone had stolen employee credentials. He spent another 2 weeks verifying every detail. Nothing suggested external hackers. Someone inside the company possessed legitimate access. He quietly expanded his investigation. Without accusing anyone, he reviewed digital audit trails, authorization histories, and unusual login patterns. Eventually, one uncomfortable fact became impossible to ignore. Most of the suspicious activity originated from accounts assigned to members of the Harrington family. Daniel leaned back in his chair. He checked everything again. Then a third time. The data remained the same. His stomach tightened. This wasn't the kind of conclusion anyone wanted to reach. The following morning, he requested a confidential meeting with Victoria. She welcomed him into her office. "You sounded concerned." Daniel placed a folder on her desk. "I found something." She reviewed several pages silently. Her expression gradually changed. "This can't be right. I wish it weren't." Victoria looked at him. "You're suggesting someone inside my own family may be responsible." Daniel answered carefully. I'm suggesting these accounts deserve immediate investigation. I'm accusing no one. I'm asking questions. Victoria slowly stood and walked toward the window overlooking the city. My uncle has served on the board for 20 years. My cousin manages acquisitions. My younger brother oversees international partnerships. Daniel nodded. I know. That's why I brought this only to you. Victoria appreciated his discretion. I'll handle this personally. Daniel smiled. That's all I'm asking. Unfortunately, someone else learned about their private meeting. Within 48 hours, Victoria was summoned to an emergency board session. Every senior family member attended. The atmosphere felt tense from the moment she entered. Her uncle spoke first. We've received disturbing information. Victoria remained calm. What information? A department director is secretly investigating members of this family. Another board member added. He claims our own executives are leaking company information. Victoria replied firmly. He made no public accusations. He presented evidence requiring further review. Her cousin leaned forward. Evidence? Or speculation? If employees begin believing family members can't be trusted, investor confidence could collapse. The discussion grew increasingly heated. Several relatives insisted Daniel had overstepped his authority. Others argued his continued employment represented a legal risk. Victoria tried defending him. He has protected this company for more than a decade. Her uncle answered coldly. And now he's attacking the people who built it. Hours passed. Pressure mounted from every direction. Finally, exhausted and surrounded by relatives demanding immediate action, Victoria reluctantly agreed to terminate Daniel while an outside review was conducted. That evening, she personally walked to Daniel's office. He was quietly packing family photographs, books, and Lily's latest drawing, a colorful picture labeled, "Best Dad Ever." Victoria looked genuinely saddened. I'm sorry. Daniel smiled gently. I know this wasn't easy. No. It wasn't. She hesitated. I hope you understand. Daniel carefully placed the drawing into a folder. I understand more than you think. He picked up a small cardboard box containing his belongings and walked toward the door. Before leaving, he stopped. Without anger. Without resentment. He looked directly at Victoria. I've worked here long enough to know something. She waited silently. The greatest threats rarely come through locked doors. They're usually invited inside. Victoria frowned. What are you trying to tell me? Daniel lowered his voice. Don't trust your own family. Then, without another word, the single father quietly walked out of Harrington Industries, leaving behind a warning that would echo in Victoria's mind long after he had disappeared from the building. For the next several days, Victoria tried to convince herself she had made the right decision. The board seemed satisfied. Her relatives assured her the situation had been handled. Life at Harrington Industries appeared to return to normal. But something didn't feel right. Daniel's final words echoed in her mind every time she entered the executive floor. Don't trust your own family. A week later, another confidential merger proposal collapsed. The competing company submitted a bid that matched Harrington Industries' private offer almost exactly. Only a handful of executives had seen the proposal. Victoria immediately ordered an independent forensic audit, not to prove Daniel wrong, but to finally discover the truth. The outside cybersecurity firm spent nearly 3 weeks reviewing server logs, email records, document histories, and authorization trails. When the final report arrived, the lead investigator requested a private meeting. Victoria's hands trembled as she opened the folder. The findings were devastating. Daniel had been right. There had been no outside hackers. Confidential information had been copied using legitimate executive credentials. The investigation showed that Victoria's cousin, who oversaw acquisitions, had secretly shared sensitive business information with a rival investment group in exchange for hidden financial benefits. Even worse, Victoria's uncle had discovered suspicious activity months earlier but chose to ignore it to avoid a family scandal. Neither expected anyone to uncover the pattern. The lead investigator looked at Victoria. "Your former cybersecurity director identified the problem before anyone else. He followed every proper procedure. He should never have been dismissed." Victoria quietly closed the report. She remembered Daniel standing in his office with nothing but a small cardboard box and a drawing from Lily. He had never raised his voice. Never argued. Never tried to embarrass anyone. He had simply told the truth. The very next morning, Victoria drove to the small neighborhood where Daniel lived. She found him repairing a broken bicycle with Lily in the front yard. Lily smiled first. "Dad, it's your boss." Daniel looked up and offered the same calm smile he always had. "Good morning." Victoria stepped out of the car. "I owe you an apology." Daniel set the wrench down. "You don't owe me anything. I fired the one person who was protecting this company." Daniel answered gently. "You made the best decision you could with the information you believed." Victoria shook her head. "I should have trusted your integrity." She handed him an envelope. Inside was a formal offer to return as Chief Information Security Officer, along with a promotion to Executive Vice President. Daniel read it carefully before folding it closed. "I have one condition." Victoria nodded. "Anything?" "No employee should ever be punished again for raising an honest concern respectfully." Victoria smiled. "Agreed." Within weeks, Harrington Industries introduced a confidential ethics reporting system, independent oversight for internal investigations, and stronger governance policies that prevented any one family member from controlling sensitive decisions. Several board positions were filled by independent directors rather than relatives. Trust slowly returned. The company recovered. Months later, during the annual employee meeting, Victoria stood before thousands of workers. She didn't hide what had happened. Instead, she spoke honestly. "The greatest mistake I ever made wasn't trusting the wrong people. It was failing to stand behind someone who had earned my trust." She then invited Daniel onto the stage. The auditorium erupted in applause. Daniel accepted the recognition with quiet humility. "I wasn't protecting a company," he said. "I was protecting the people whose livelihoods depended on it." After the event, Lily asked her father, "Were you angry when you got fired?" Daniel smiled. "I was disappointed. But anger makes it harder to do the right thing." Years later, employees still remembered the story of the single dad who left with nothing but a cardboard box and a quiet warning. Not because he predicted a betrayal, but because he chose honesty over comfort, remained respectful even when treated unfairly, and proved that true integrity doesn't disappear when circumstances become difficult. Sometimes the hardest truth to accept is that loyalty to principles is more important than loyalty to people, even when those people are family.